Do you know the difference between var, let, and const in JavaScript? If not, don't worry, you're about to find out. In the expansive universe of JavaScript, variable declaration is a fundamental concept. It's like the bricks and mortar of a building, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Our focus today is on three key players in this arena: var, let, and const, each with its own set of rules and behaviors. Scoping, or the accessibility of variables, functions, and objects in some particular logical region of code, is where these three differ significantly. It's a bit like the different neighborhoods in a city. They all belong to the same metropolis, but each has its own unique character and rules. Understanding these differences can be a game changer in your JavaScript journey, helping you write cleaner, more efficient code. Ready to dive into the world of JavaScript scoping? Stay tuned. Let's start with var, a way to declare variables in JavaScript that's been around since the beginning. It might seem like any other way to declare a variable, but it has a unique characteristic. It is function scoped. This means that the scope of a variable declared with var is its containing function. To put it simply, when you declare a variable with var inside a function, that variable can only be accessed within that function. It's like having a secret that you only share within your own little world, and that world is the function. Let's look at an example. Suppose you have a function named myFunction, and inside this function you declare a variable myVar with the var keyword. MyVar is only accessible within myFunction. If you try to log myVar outside myFunction, JavaScript will throw an error telling you that myVar is not defined. Now, what happens if you declare a variable with var outside any function? Well, in that case, the variable is globally scoped. This means it can be accessed from any part of your JavaScript code. It's like shouting a secret from the rooftops. Everyone in your JavaScript world can hear it. However, there's an exception to this rule. When var is used inside a block of code, like an if statement or a loop, it's not block scoped. The variable can be accessed outside the block, but within the function or globally if it's not in a function. Remember, var doesn't care about block scope, it only respects function scope. So even if you declare a var variable inside a for loop or an if statement, it will be as if you declared it at the top of the function or at the top of your script if it's not inside any function. This behavior is known as hoisting. So that's var for you. Its scope is limited to the function where it's declared. It's a bit old school compared to let and const, but it's still a fundamental part of JavaScript that's important to understand. Now let's move on to let and const. Introduced in ES6, they've brought some changes to how we declare variables. Both let and const are modern ways to declare JavaScript variables, and they've shaken up the game in a big way. When compared to var, let, and const have some key differences. One of the most significant changes is their scoping rules. While var is function scoped, let and const are block scoped. This means let and const have a more limited scope, confined to the block in which they're declared. This can be a game changer when it comes to managing your code. Also, the const declaration adds another layer of complexity, as it's used to declare constants or variables that we don't want to be reassigned. This can be super handy in preventing accidental changes to our variables. So let and const are the new kids on the block. But how do they differ from var? Let's find out. Unlike var, let and const are block scoped. But what does that mean? Well, let's dive in and find out. In JavaScript, a block is any code within curly braces, like the body of a function, an if statement, or a loop. Now, when we say that let and const are block scoped, it means that their visibility is limited to the block in which they are declared. Imagine a game of hide and seek. The let and const variables are like players who found a great hiding spot. They're only visible or accessible from within the boundaries of their hiding spot, the block. Once you step out of that block, they're out of sight, out of mind. Let's look at an example. If you declare a let variable inside a for loop, you can use it within that loop, but try to access it outside the loop and JavaScript will throw an error. It's like trying to find our hide and seek player in the wrong location. Now, what about const? The same rules apply. A const variable declared inside a function or a loop is only visible within that block. But there's one key difference. While let variables can be reassigned, const variables cannot. Once a const variable is assigned a value, that value is set in stone. It's like our hide-and-seek player deciding to stay in their hiding spot for the entire game. So what happens if you declare a let or const variable without any block? Well, in this case, they become global variables, visible from anywhere in your code. But remember, they're still not as free-spirited as var variables, which hoist themselves to the top of their containing function, or the global scope if there's no containing function. So in a nutshell, let and const are confined to the block where they're declared, unlike var. This makes them more predictable and helps avoid bugs that can occur when variables are unintentionally redeclared or modified, and that's a win for any developer. Now that we've gone over var, let, and const, let's summarize their differences. First, let's talk about var. When you declare a variable using var, it's scoped to the function in which it's declared. If you declare it outside any function, it becomes a global variable, accessible anywhere in your code. Also, var variables are hoisted to the top of their scope, meaning they're initialized with a value of undefined at the start of their scope. This is a unique characteristic of var that can sometimes lead to unexpected results. On the other hand, let and const abide by the rules of block scoping. A block is any section of code surrounded by curly braces. Think of statements, for loops, or even a simple pair of braces. Variables declared with let and const only exist within the block they're defined in. They're not accessible outside that block, which can help prevent variable pollution and naming collisions. But let and const are not interchangeable. While let allows you to reassign new values to the variable, const does not. Once a const variable has been assigned, its value cannot be changed. It's constant, as its name suggests. It's worth noting that const doesn't make the variable itself immutable, just its assignment. If you assign an object or an array to a const variable, you can still modify that object or array. Unlike var, let and const are not hoisted to the top of their block. Well, technically they are, but they're not initialized. They exist in a temporal dead zone from the start of the block until their declaration is processed. Trying to access them in this zone results in a reference error. So, to recap, var is function scoped and hoisted, let and const are block scoped and not hoisted. Let allows reassignment while const does not. There you have it, the differences between var, let, and const, but let's not stop there. You might be wondering, why is understanding these differences so important? Well, let's delve into that. The way JavaScript handles scoping can significantly impact the functionality of your code. It's a bit like knowing the rules of the road when driving. If you're not aware of the rules, you're likely to run into trouble. When you understand scoping, you grasp how and where variables are accessed in your code. This understanding can be the difference between a smoothly running application and one fraught with bugs and errors. Think about it. If you've ever spent hours debugging only to find that a variable was not behaving as expected due to scoping issues, you'll know the frustration. That's why understanding how var, let, and const are scoped can save you countless hours of debugging. Moreover, understanding scoping rules can help you write more efficient code. When you know the scope of a variable, you can limit its lifespan, reducing memory usage. This efficiency can be crucial in large-scale applications where performance is key. But it's not just about efficiency and error reduction. Understanding scoping can also make your code more readable and maintainable. When you use var, let, and const appropriately, other developers can understand your intentions more clearly. It's like leaving signposts in your code that guide others through your thought process. Finally, mastering scoping rules can make you a better programmer overall. It's one of the fundamental concepts in JavaScript and many other programming languages. It's an essential part of the coder's toolkit, just like a mechanic needs to know how different parts of an engine work together. So, understanding scoping rules in JavaScript is not just about knowing the difference between var, let, and const. It's about writing efficient, error-free code. It's about becoming a more proficient coder, one who can craft code that's not only functional, but also clean, efficient, and easy to understand. It's about being a better driver on the road of coding.